Welcome back to the shop and to the channel. I'm going to try to make some more progress on this drive gear. I machined these notches in the arbor for the drive dogs in the last video. I have this piece of 4140 that happens to be exactly the right width for the drive dogs. I even checked it in the notches on the spindle. So I need to cut a couple of pieces off of it and machine it in order to fit in the space here that I have. I'm going to need these to be about 3/4 of an inch long or so. I think I'll just rough cut them to about that length on the bandsaw, and I'll bring you back when I get a couple of blanks. Well, fresh off the bandsaw, we got these two blanks. They're a little bit longer than they need to be. I plan on squaring them up anyway. They're the right width, but I will need to machine down the height a little bit. Well, I have both of these blanks clamped into the vise, one on one end and one on the other, and it's just to even up the clamping pressure on the vise jaws. I'm just going to use this end mill here to clean up and square up one of the edges. With one edge on the first piece cleaned up, I'm going to swap this with the second piece and do the same thing, clean up one edge. With one edge cleaned up, I want to go ahead and take it out so I can measure it with the micrometer and see how much I'm going to need to remove to get to my target length. I'll get rid of some of these burrs here so I can at least get a reasonably accurate length. It doesn't need to be super precise, but it'd be nice to get it as close as I can. I'll take this number now and plug it into the DRO, and then I can just work down to my target dimension as I remove material here off of this right side. Well, that's interesting. I guess I didn't give it enough stick out, and my end mill actually touched, it just kind of grazed the right side of the vice jaw. It shouldn't have done any damage to the end mill. It was barely touching it, but that does mean I'm going to need to reset this part and then reset my DRO. With the DRO reset now, this should be my last pass I need to make here to get me to dimension. Well, 625 was my target, so we're right where I want to be. With this part now machined to the correct length, I'm going to use this vise stop that clamps onto the jaw of the vise, and this will make machining the second piece a little bit easier. With these pieces machined down to the correct length, now I can machine the correct height. So I've got them both clamped here close to the center, and I've got this 1-inch end mill. It's something I got in a lot of other end mills. It very well could be a regrind, or it may not be very sharp. It felt pretty decent, but I figure we'll go ahead and give it a shot and see how it does here. Yeah, I'm not too happy with that finish. I think I'll swap this out for something else. Yeah, that's a much better finish. I might need to take these in 2 passes, but I'd rather do that than end up with a crappy finish. So with this side cleanup, I'll flip them over and machine the other side down until I'm at the thickness I need to be. Well, it looks like I ended up a few thousandths undersized, but that's okay. This will be fine. Well, these are now machined down to the right width, height, and length. So now I need to do a little bit of grinding here to get them to fit just right. Because I use an end mill to machine these notches, I need to grind away a little radius on the one part of the drive dog for it to fit in there just right. I put a little of my favorite dicum, that's blue dicum, on the top of the drive dog here, and I'm going to put the arbor in, and then I'm just going to use a scribe to outline the area that I need to grind back. I think the easiest way to grind the radius on this drive dog is just to clamp it here in one of these can't twist clamps. And I'm just going to use a Dremel with actually a little drum sanding attachment on it. I think this will be easy enough to take just a tiny little bit of material off on the corner, just in the spots that I need it. That was pretty simple. That's a nice fit. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing to the other drive dog and I'll bring you back. Well, that's a pretty nice fit here for these drive dogs. Now we just got to figure out how to make sure that they stay where I want them to be and that they are there precisely where they need to be. So this will make sense here as I go along here, but I'm putting a little bit of grease on the inside of the spindle and the outside of the arbor. I also want to put a little bit more inside the slots here and on the face of the spindle. And now I can fit those drive dogs into the notches and the arbor and make sure everything is lined up with the slots in the spindle. But I do want to make sure that the back of these drive dogs that they're clean, that there's no grease or oil left on them at all. Put a little bit more here on the arbor spindle and around inside of these slots, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to super glue these drive dogs to the back of the gear. I'll slide the gear on here again so that those drive dogs are offset from the 4 screws for the spacer, and I'm also going to mount the spacer onto the front of the gear. So all that grease is really intended that if there's any kind of squeeze out of the super glue, that I don't end up gluing everything together. The only thing I want the glue to set up on is the drive dog to the gear.
12 seconds later.
Well, the super glue has had about 15 minutes or so to set up. I should be able to knock this out of the spindle and take it all out as one piece. Now, if there was no excessive squeeze out and the grease did its job, I should be able to take this thing apart and the drive dogs will stay attached to the back of the gear, but nothing else will be stuck together. Now, hopefully, I can take these over to the Bridgeport and drill and tap for these countersunk screws. And being that these have been super glued to the back of the gear, they should be in exactly the right spot for when it all goes back together permanently. Well, I'm back over here at the Bridgeport, and we'll use those machinist parallels that I've been using on this project a little bit already. I'm going to set this gear down on top of those, and I want to align these drive dogs now so that they are in line with the x-axis of the Bridgeport. So I'm going to put a parallel on the front of them and see if I can't use a dial indicator to indicate that parallel and at least get it close. Now, I'm not looking for this to be absolutely precise and perfect, but I would like to get it within a couple of thousandths. And I think that's just going to make it easier to drill and tap these holes because I may need to go back and forth between them and at least give them a little bit of symmetry. And I think that's really close. That's good enough here. So that's within maybe what, a thousandth. So now I just need to line up the center hole to get my X and Y zero. Well, as usual, I'm going to start here with a 1/4 inch spotting drill. I do have these offset about 1 inch from the center of that bore. I had marked a line of on here with some dicum here where I kind of wanted it. It's not quite on that spot, but that's fine. I just rounded it up to 1 inch. Well, I have the tap drill size for a 1024 machine screw here in the chuck. Of course, use a little bit of anchor lube. I do have the quill stop set so it doesn't drill all the way through the gear, so this will be another blind hole. We'll get the other hole caught up to this one here, so I'll spot this and drill it for the tap hole size.
It was at this moment he knew. He f***ed up.
Well, oops, I was kind of afraid that that could possibly happen. But it's really not the end of the world. I think what I'll do is I'll clean this up a little bit and put on some more super glue. And with that, I should be able to use the drill bit to line this back up and at least get it in the right spot to drill the hole. It can be off a little bit as far as angle wise, but that's okay. Once it goes together permanently, it'll line up just fine. So we'll scrape off the old glue and glue it back down.
Perfect.
One eternity later.
Well, I have a drill in the chuck here that should be the clearance hole size for the screw, and I have the quill stop set so that it will drill just a little bit past, maybe by 60 thousandths of the height of the drive dog. Well, the next thing I want to do is drill the countersinks so that these screws will sit flush or just below the surface of the drive dog. Well, the last thing I need to do here is tap these holes. I probably should have pulled the drive dogs off first, but I figured since the clearance hole was there, the tap will fit through it. This shouldn't be a big deal. I'm using a spiral fluted tap, so the chips will come out the top, and I've gotten pretty good at feeling when I get to the bottom of a blind hole. Well, that feels about the bottom of the hole here. I'm trying to back this tap out, and it got a little bit stuck, and something didn't quite feel right, and sure enough, as I was removing the tap broke off.
Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm! Wait. Everybody calm down!
Well, that is the first rule, is just to stay calm. I really kind of wanted to panic a little bit here, but I do have options. It is not the end of the world. I just have to consider what the best option is, and then if that doesn't work, keep going down the line until we get one that works. Well, this is definitely a first for me. I don't think I've ever had a tap break as I was trying to remove it. I've certainly had taps break trying to go too deep into a blind hole, but this certainly wasn't that. So this has been very frustrating because it's the last step in getting this drive gear ready to go. Well, I wish I would have moved the camera around for you all to see what I'm doing here, but my best option here to try is going to be seeing if I can't get the tap out. There's enough of it there that I think I can use a punch and a hammer and try to unthread it. This might take a little bit of time, but it's moving just a tiny bit with each tap of the hammer. And if I'm careful and I don't, completely shatter the tap to where I can't get to it anymore, I think I might be able to work this out a little bit. I just need to move slowly. Well, that wasn't a whole lot of fun, but I managed to get it done, and oddly enough, the screw still threads in. So anyway, I'll probably go ahead and throw a bottom tap in here just to make sure it's all clean, and I'm going to tap the other one off camera. I'll bring you back when I'm done. Well, with both of those holes now tapped, I can go ahead and do a dry fit here. I will eventually come back and use some blue Loctite on all the fasteners here just to make sure that nothing comes apart when I don't want it to. And if all went as planned, this should still fit in the spindle as it did before when I had it super glued up. And it does. It's a nice snug fit, so I do like that. I didn't want any play between the drive dogs and the notches in the spindle on the KNT. So let's fire the machine up and we'll just, watch it go spin round and round. Well, this thing is now all together and ready for the next step. Now, I have done some tests with this and how it meshes with the driven gear on the universal head. And I think I might need to make some adjustments here to this gear, or at least to something. And I have some things in mind that will help me determine just, what I might need to do. And it's going to be a little bit more involved. So I'm going to hold that for another video. And hopefully by the end of that video, we'll be using this to make some chips. As always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. I really do appreciate seeing that. And if you've got any comments or criticisms, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. And I'd hope you'd consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And a big thank you to all those that have already subscribed and are returning viewers, and especially those that support the channel through other means, either through PayPal or through Patreon. It really does mean a lot. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.